Kia ora and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Kathy O'Sullivan, editor for CIO New Zealand, and I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, Hilary Walton, Chief Information Security Officer at Kordia Group. Hello, Hilary.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Great to have you here to chat to us today. So just to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit more about your role and what your team at Kordia does?
Absolutely. So as Chief Information Security Officer, my role is responsible for the overall security position of Kordia across Australia and New Zealand. And we're quite a diverse business. So we have a big focus around cybersecurity, as you can imagine, but also cloud and secure connectivity as well. And we do that through the various teams at Kordia. We have Kordia itself, and then we've got Aura Information Security, which is like our InfoSec consultancy. So they do a lot of advisory work and then also pen testing and security reviews. And then also through Kordia SecOps, which is our managed security service provider as well. I don't know if it's a well-known fact, but we're actually one of the largest New Zealand cybersecurity companies. We've got over 75 cybersecurity experts across our business, which are working to keep Kiwi and Aussie businesses safe. So, it's with Kordia, my role, it also has kind of another hat that I wear. So I'm really passionate about communicating. And so I also play this external ambassador role for the company as well, around thought leadership and cybersecurity, but digital transformation as well. And I have quite a diverse background, which I bring to my role. So I started my career as an organizational psychologist, but I've also worked in risk management, IT, and cybersecurity. So it's not quite your traditional IT kind of technology background. And I've had a couple of roles, particularly offshore back in the UK, where I worked for the MI5 in London, as well as leading information security for the London Olympics and Paralympic Games. So that's just kind of set the scene and context for our conversation.
Wow, lots of strings to your bow, Hilary, which is great. So can you tell us then, as a CISO, in what ways you collaborate and influence the Kordia and its leadership team?
I see my role as a really enterprise role. So security touches every part of the business. So that means I've got a lot of different people I need to collaborate with. So it's really important for us in terms of being safe and secure that I do get across those different groups of people. And also it's not just about keeping Kordia secure internally. Cybersecurity is that strategic pillar as well in terms of our products and services and keeping customers secure and safe. So it's got quite a large, varied kind of horizon that it's looking at. And so one of the ways I try and keep across everyone and keep them on track really, is to make sure that I've got some really good security governance processes set up. So I have a couple of groups in particular that I work with at the leadership level. So one is the exec team, and that has representation from across the organisation. And then the other group is senior managers across the organisation who are more looking at the day-to-day running of the security program, with the exec team playing that governance role across the top. And so my role then is to create transparency in the organisation about what the security position of the company is and to raise risks as we see them, but to the right business manager. And I think that's really important that they do own their risks themselves. So while I'm the Chief Information Security Officer of the company, security is not just up to me, it's matrix throughout the organisation.
And the role of CISO is relatively new in terms of the industry. So what do you think are some of the key attributes of a successful modern day CISO in relation to leadership?
So in relation to leadership, I think whether it's a CISO or a CDO or actually a CIO as well, I think a big part of our roles is making that balance between risk avoidance and also risk enablement. So the goal is that we can explain the risks to the organisation so that they can make the right decisions and take ownership of the controls to protect the organisation. So I think that kind of interpretation or translation within the business is really important. But also I think we'll never have all the information that we need, although we might want it. So we need to really be able to deal with uncertainty. and make the best decisions that we know of with the information we've got, or thinking about kind of what's likely to occur. And I think with so much of it being in an enterprise space, I think communication is a really important part of the role as well, particularly for modern CISOs. We need to be able to communicate clearly with the leadership team, but also everyone else in the organisation as well. So, because we need to keep our pulse on what the culture and the behaviours of the organisation are, to make sure that security is front of mind and we're being secure. So I think there's almost, with being a modern CISO, very much a human element that we need to bring to our role. We need to be really kind and empathetic with our people. We need to always be the bigger person in the situations that we come up against when things might be quite tense, particularly around the topic of security. And I think the more human we can be as security leaders, then the better return on investment that the organisations are going to see, because they'll get more people coming to security teams and to CISOs and discussing the things that they need to be discussing so that they can be fixed or helped in the right way.
I love that. I love that human-centred approach to it. So then what would be your biggest challenge as a CISO?
So my biggest challenge, and this is very much Kordia-based, is that our business is so diverse that when I do my annual threat assessments, it appears every threat is a threat to my business. So it's good because it makes it really interesting as a CISO. It makes it challenging, and I've always been told go where the challenges are. But then the converse of that is, for example, if we were a retail business, then it would be very much looking after our website and maybe supply chain, and you could focus things down a little bit more. So I think the key for me then, with the challenges I have, is to never stop being vigilant of what's going on, because cybersecurity is really dynamic and it's continuously changing. You might think you have the safest company in the world, or at least, you're in a good spot, and then in the afternoon, things can be quite different. So you've got to keep your finger on the pulse. And the way I do that is really by heavily engaging in cybersecurity governance within the organisation, so that information is constantly surfacing to the people it needs to go to. I'm focusing on third parties as well, because we all have third parties who are kind of connected into our organisation, managing data or tools. So making sure that as an extension of my cybersecurity posture, the third parties are in a good position as well. And then lastly, incident response. So making sure that our incident response plan is actually going to work when we need it. So that's how I'm kind of managing those challenges.
Brilliant. And you touched on it earlier, talking about empathy and that human-centered approach. So can you tell us a bit more about how you're creating that internal culture to help your staff, thrive and meet their professional and personal goals?
I love this question. It's right up my alley as a psychologist. So I really love bringing communities of people together. It brings me a lot of joy in the work that I do. And now that it's not kind of practical or sensible for everyone to be together all the time, particularly given hybrid work models and things like that, I'm really enjoying finding ways to do that through technology. Digital engagement is definitely a thing, and it does work. So some ways that I've done that at Kordia is I've pulled all those cybersecurity professionals who are in different teams across the organisation together into a kind of a chat group, and we've formed this Kordia Security Network. And it's a place for people to meet each other because they're not always in the same location, but also ask questions or, collaborate on things or kind of point people in the right direction in terms of sharing information with people as well. And it's been one of the largest kind of chat groups that we've got at Kordia because we're all so interested in security. The other place I've done that is actually at Kordia as well, and we've developed a security and non-binary kind of chat or safe space as well. And the reason we did that was because we really wanted to see who are the women in non-binary of Kordia. Sometimes it can be quite hard to put your finger on people in an organisation, again, when you're quite national and spread across different countries. So that's been another great kind of success story in terms of building community with people. And it's also provided quite a lot of kind of mentoring opportunities for people because they can kind of see each other and then therefore go for coffees and ask some of those mentoring questions. One of the other things we did, and this is particularly during lockdown, and it's the same issue that we're trying to solve again and again, is we're trying to get outside our natural work group to find the other teams. And so we set up something called Cordia Talks, and it was kind of like a lunch and learn, semi-regular, every kind of couple of weeks, and anyone could run one of these, and it would be on a variety of topics, from how to host virtual drinks through to a hot cybersecurity topic, or coaching and leadership issue, challenges, and it could be a workshop or a presentation. And so that's been really successful as well, just to bring people together across the company. So I think we do need to be quite creative in thinking about the ways that we branch out of our kind of siloed teams and across different groups in the company to make sure that we are building people, developing people, even when they're not in our natural work group.
You mentioned it briefly around, finding who else is working in Cordia that might be a woman. Why do you think we don't have enough diversity in IT? And what practical things do you think can be done to attract a more diverse workforce here in New Zealand?
Yeah, I think it has been so baked in to men and women. It's extremely cultural that maybe that some subjects are men will prefer over women, if you like, and it almost takes me back to when I was a schoolgirl and I didn't want to seem too bright or too bold because I was doing the sciences and the maths. So the truth is there always has been a bit of a bias around technology and those kind of science subjects. Some seem to be best suited to men and boys, and then others for girls, or at least girls and women who wanted to get into those other subjects. You needed to be kind of a little bit brave jumping into those subjects, and then quite comfortable that you were going to be the only female in the room, potentially as well. Not always, but quite often. So I think we do have those kind of gender stereotypes, which are quite hard to shake off. And even if I think about my own family, so I've got 2 young boys and a young girl, I'm not sure I really have equally pushed her towards the kind of science toys as opposed to some of the more female toys, makeup and dolls and things like that. So even myself, who's quite passionate about diversity, tries really hard in that space, mentors lots of people. It's still something that I haven't quite implemented as well as I should in a very unbiased way in my family. So I think that it is pretty entrenched, but I think there's small things that you can do that really change this. And a lot of it is actually semantics and language that you use. So for example, there's an NFT project called Boss Beauties, which I'm involved with. And one of the things they do there is about encouraging women into technology and leadership in creative positions. And they have this slogan, which I really love, which is "Smart looks gorgeous on you." So essentially, being smart is really beautiful. So you shouldn't shy away from being smart. You should really embrace that. And I think it's those important messages that we have for men as well as for girls that can change the dial, because it also continues into the workplace as well. We need to think about in the workplace things like our recruitment practices. If we have to front up to an all-male panel to get into a technology department, that can be really huge. And then men also kind of need to understand that sometimes there's different ways that females will present compared to males. So first of all, just as generically speaking, but a female might not put herself forward for a role from the start, so she's self-selecting out. And the other one is on her CV, and then also an interview, that it's not comparing apples with apples when you're looking at male and female candidates. So a female candidate might use more inclusive language, like "we did this," "the team did that," whereas a male might be more like "I did this," "I achieved that." So just being aware of some of those unconscious biases in the ways people might present can really just help to equal the playing field, because it's really good for everyone to have gender diversity and diversity in workplaces, not just the females, but actually the males as well, because it allows them to be who they really want to be. And, that they can be caring and, empathetic and in a workplace, and that's really valued as well.
So what advice would you have then for someone who has aspirations to be a CISO? What would you advise them to do?
So my advice, and I never really received this myself, but it's something that I found out along the way, is that you don't have to choose to be just a CISO. Essentially my advice. You don't need to decide on one thing that you want to be with your career. You can absolutely be many things, and it's going to change over time. And I think that really takes the pressure off, because you can try something, and if it's and then if you see something else more interesting, you can give that a go as well. And I think role modeled that throughout my career as I've done different domains of knowledge, and then also different industries as well. I think people think to do a role that you need to know 100% how to do that role as soon as you go into it, when the reality is the first 6 months you're just learning. And if you if you can learn, then you will be able to pick up a role and be really good at it. So yeah, it's not about this or that, being this or that. It's much more about and. And so for me, that's mother and business person, psychologist and, security person, employee, and I have my own interests and passions on the side with my digital culture ideas, YouTube and podcast. You can go slow and you can go fast. Like it's just all about, much more about and I think we need to, again, from a language perspective, change that so that people can be what they want to be.
So looking back on your own career then, and you've had, as you said, many interesting pivots that have got to you to where you are now, and you're clearly someone who loves to learn and look at new ways of doing things. So can you tell us what might be a mistake that you made in your career that's shaped you as a leader, that you've learned a lot from?
Yeah. It wasn't hard to think of this one, because I did it quite early on in my career and I've been kicking myself ever since. But I was at university and I wanted to join the Air Force, and I was looking at the different ways to do that. And my father said, well, you should see if they will sponsor your degree, because I still had some of my master's degree to do. And I looked on the website and I was like, no, it doesn't look like they sponsor psychology degrees. They only do the engineering roles and the kind of more pilot type subjects. And so I didn't even ask the question, and so didn't get that sponsored. I then went on to join the Air Force, and then while I was there, we received a letter from a student who said, "Dear Director of Psychology, will you sponsor my master's degree?" And the director said yes. She said, "Oh, what a great idea." And I was just like, this has literally cost me thousands of dollars, which I've paid off over many years. And so I made the decision without even asking. And so that's been a big thing in the back of my mind throughout my whole career. You've just got to ask, because the status quo can change. You just got to ask, would be one of my biggest advice there.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like a costly mistake, but one that you can, hopefully someone else will not make the same mistake.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're someone who's quite passionate and active on social media, talking about emerging and disruptive technologies like NFTs. So which technologies do you think CIOs need to pay more attention to, and why?
So I think CIOs, whether they're men or women, it's actually the one you just mentioned. They need to pay attention to NFTs and Web3. I believe that this is one of those big technology changes, which is the same as, when the internet was born, and then people were like, well, I'm not going to put my credit card into the internet. I'm never going to buy tomatoes on the internet. Or when social media came and people said, well, I'm not going to, how's this going to be useful for my business? I don't want to post mundane status updates or, take selfies. And then how game-changing those have actually been for businesses. So I think that's a emerging technology that CIOs need to keep their eye on. And I think in particular, what I'm sort of seeing is in that space, because I'm quite active in that space at the moment, there's not a lot of females who are really putting themselves forward in that space. We're talking about 16% of NFT artists only being women versus male. And while some people might think cryptocurrency is stupid or NFTs are stupid, I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I think that, we do see twice as many men as women investing in this space. And, you know, if we think about the money that's in that space, you know, it is in the billions. That's a lot of money to be left off the table for either gender. So I think people need to keep an eye on what's going on there, because what we are seeing is that there's this kind of jostling for leadership positions. And if women CEOs in particular don't really keep an eye on that horizon, then once again it'll be dominated by men, and there's a lot to lose for them actually missing out. So yeah, it's a really exciting industry, and you know, I think if people have shied away from conversations so far about NFTs and cryptocurrency and things like that, do 20 hours of research on it, really look into it before turning your back on the subject.
So, the role of CISO didn't exist, you know, many years ago. Do you think we'll have chief metaverse officers in the future?
I think we absolutely could. And I think security is going to play a key role in that industry as well. There's a whole bunch of new risks, which will be exciting to try to mitigate. But as we also kind of enable that world and some of the benefits that we do see there. So yeah, a chief metaverse officer is probably going to be a CEO role in the future potentially.
Yeah, interesting space to keep an eye on. So then finally, Hilary, can you tell us what's important to you in the months ahead?
So for me, from a security perspective, we're looking at getting our next security maturity assessment done. So I'm really looking to see some of the gains we've made as an organisation, as well as thinking about what we need to focus on next. I'm also looking forward to really embracing some more of these digital ways of working and hybrid work model. I think that there is a lot that organisations kind of need to get used to there, as again, these traditional mindsets have changed. You know, it's not about being in person or, you know, remote. I think every situation in a business now needs to be hybrid, is where I'm at, even social occasions as well. So I'm really excited to think about how we can do that, because I guess as a person who's based in Christchurch while the rest of my team is based in Auckland and Wellington, it means we can start breaking down some of these silos of location that have tended to pop up. So I'm really keen to see how we can focus more on digital ways of working and the hybrid model to really get that humming so that our business can really thrive.
Hilary Walton, Chief Information Security Officer at Kordia Group, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.